Hey, what's up? It's Bon. Let's talk about Mass Effect. What I want to talk about this week in this video is why I hope BioWare and the Mass Effect developers don't worry about the players. And that may seem kind of silly, right? The the general thought is, well, you have a player base, you want to give them what they want, but I think through many years of just being a fan of games myself, quite a few years now of commentating online and so on, and especially during content creation for the last 4 or 5 years, I've learned more than ever that player feedback should be taken into account and looked at highly suspiciously. I think the basis of how I feel about this comes from, let's use Mass Effect as the example, right? Say there's 100,000 people currently, like today, interacting with a Mass Effect IP. So on the subreddit, on Twitter, in YouTube video comments, say there's 100,000 people at any given time saying whether they want Shepard back or not, saying whether they want Andromeda 2 or not, saying whether they want to combine the galaxies or don't, who are okay with canonizing and ending or aren't. The thing is that, people like me and anyone who's probably watching this video and people involved in this conversation, maybe sometimes forget that they are the exception. They are the extreme. They are the unique, they are the 5% of the player base, right? Where the vast majority of players of any game, but using Mass Effect as an example, will turn it on, will play it, will finish it, and then they're done. They say, I like that game, that was fun, and they wait for the next one to come out and they do other stuff, right? So what happens is we kind of get stuck in these little echo chambers. Even if those echo chambers aren't echoing our own opinions, but they are just echoing that game and the different opinions on it. What you start to notice is you'll see people say that they want Ryder back as the protagonist. And what you'll have is this vocal minority of players who really liked Andromeda, who maybe Andromeda was their first game, or maybe they just liked Ryder a lot, and they will find in these relatively small representations of the community a decent number of people who agree with them, even though if you took the entire many millions of players opinions, and maybe not everyone would agree, but in these smaller vocal minority communities, they'll find people who agree with them, and then they'll all be on top of it and say, well, there's so many of us who think this, surely everyone does. And the same thing could happen with any example, with whether to bring Shepard back or whether Tally's the best romance, even though, let's be honest, that's a fact. But I just think that people get caught up sometimes, and even myself and other creators get caught up sometimes in this idea that because a few dozen people agree with us, maybe even a couple hundred people agree with us, means that, well, that must represent the entirety of the player base. This next game is going to be really interesting because I basically think the next Mass Effect is going to have to try to play the three different groups that are all pretty important, but one of them might be the most. Those three groups are going to be OG, like trilogy fans, newer fans they picked up with Andromeda, because if you've heard like Mark Dara or other people talk about it, they were reaching out to a new player base with Andromeda. That's why it kind of seems like a CW show. If you don't know what that means, look it up. And then they're going to be looking at the entirely new set of players who have never played a Mass Effect game before, since Andromeda, right? Because it's been 5 years since Andromeda came out. And so you're talking about there's a whole subset. There's many millions of gamers who have started playing games, more serious games. They're teenagers now or whatever, that maybe don't even know Andromeda exists. So you have to remember that when this next game comes out, it's both been made and it's going to be marketed to those three groups. Now, the first group, the OG fans, are going to be fairly easy to market to. They may not like it, but they like Mass Effect. They're probably invested in this next game, whether they admit it or not, and that they'll play almost anything that comes out because they want more and more and more. And Andromeda fans are probably in a similar vein, especially if the next game has something to do with Andromeda. But these new fans are going to be an entirely new set of people to go for. So when we have people, bickering online about whether Shepard should come back, or we should have a new protagonist, or we should have Ryder, you all need to realize that the developers probably aren't super worried about what these vocal minorities are saying about it, and they're probably more worried about figuring out what these new players are going to want and what would be the best way to bring them in when it comes to the Shepherd question. That they'll be discussing, and they probably already have discussed, is Shepherd a good way to bring new players and old players onto the same page? Even people who have never played Mass Effect probably know who Commander Shepard is, or have seen his player model or whatever. So is that a good way to try to bring new people in and bring the old people in? Or do we have a brand new protagonist that is more modern and has a new take that will get the new players really excited, and that the old players may tolerate or learn to love, which is what they kind of tried to do with Ryder. I would argue it didn't go too well, but that's also a subjective opinion, right? So I really think, as much bickering and as much talking that happens between the current fan base, we all see another really good example that I've definitely seen is the 2021 poster. There's 3 or 4 figures walking in the middle of the poster, and the figure in the middle, to me, looks like a Turian that has the armor, like the neck line, right? That to Turians is very unique. To me, that's clearly a Turian. And then there's other creators who have made videos who swear that's Scott Ryder. So if there's ever an example of how the relatively small number of people who are really passionate about this and think about it all the time and make videos about it, and have their own speculation and takes, it's fun and it's interesting to do that. I just hope that we all don't overestimate our importance or our impact on the game. I think that the next game, who the protagonist is, has been decided for a long time. So if it's going to be Shepard or someone else, they decided that a while ago. The time frame it's going to take place, the galaxy or galaxies it's going to take place in, the antagonist, the basic story, if not a majority of the actual story, is all figured out. So while it is fun to, kind of go back and forth with people and guess and speculate and do all of that, I just hope that if they don't do a lot of the things that seem like the popular choices, and they may not even be that popular, it's just in your own echo chamber, I just hope that the players understand that it's okay if BioWare does what they want, even if the player doesn't like it. And I hope BioWare doesn't fret too much and isn't too worried about pleasing every player, because they won't, and they just make a game they're really passionate about. My main concern with this next game is that Andromeda may make them gun shy to try anything really new that may anger the player base. So I really hope they're brave, I really hope they're bold, and they just make a game that they are passionate about, because I fully believe if that team makes a game they're passionate about, no matter the choices, the time frames, the characters, even someone like, say I hate everything they decide to do, if they make a passionate game that they enjoy, I'll probably come around. But if they try to cater to everyone, they're probably gonna make a game that everyone hates. So there it is. That's my video for this one. Let me know what you think down below. If you think the dev should listen to players, if players need to just accept whatever comes. I'm kind of curious to see what you think. If you like this video and you want more Mass Effect videos, please subscribe to this channel. If you like this particular video, like it and leave a comment down below. Even if you just say hello, I would appreciate it. You can find me on socials as Bon Diesel, on Twitch, on Twitter, and most other places. You can also check out my weekly gaming podcast called The Echo Cast right here on this YouTube channel or on all podcast platforms. It's a weekly gaming show. I also occasionally have guests such as Mr. Holthen, such as Mark Dara, and a bunch of other really great people. So please check those things out. That's all I have for this one. Until next time.